jumpstart the East African community. That time it was just cooperation. And I was the first chair of that ministerial tripartite commission. My colleagues were president at that time. Foreign Minister of Tanzania was Regasira. Kikwete had not even been appointed foreign minister. And Rugunda, who later became Prime Minister of Uganda, was also the foreign minister of Uganda. We worked with speed because we recognize East Africans made a terrible mistake when the East African community collapsed in 1977. Again, unknown to Kenyans and East Africans, she told the police to their face. And even as we speak, those issues have not been sorted. We heard from this administration of William Ruto that they were going to compensate the youths who lost their lives. The families are still waiting. No compensation, no talk even, no indication whatsoever that you are willing to talk to these parents. Well, I think it is important. Justice demands that we don't make promises that we can't keep or we don't intend to keep. They just wanted an escape route, which they got. Some of us afforded them an escape route, and then they got all of it. And in fact, some of us who belong to the Azimio family are benefiting from the blood and the sweat of the many Kenyans who came to the streets, and the whole world stood still and took notice of the Gen Z revolt and movement. In the book of Ephesians, where the Bible tells us, live in you, live peaceably with all men. Leaders, we will be there looking for votes and calling each other names. But remember, we have a country. We are all, at the end of the day, Kenyans, East Africans, and members of the world community. Therefore, the example of the Gen Z and the millennials. By the way, they are the ones who came out in Botswana hardly 2 weeks ago. The Gen Zs and the millennials came out. So, I think it's within the mediation spirit to ask this administration to give ideas to these young Kenyans, because they want to come and teach some people a lesson of their lives. Like they did in Botswana, where the ruling party that time, the president who did one term, and if you look at what happened in Botswana, you can almost see exactly what has happened in Kenya. The president who was driven out by the Gen Zs and the millennials was torturing his predecessor Ian Khan, I think that's the name. Yeah. And in fact, that president escaped. Former president went to South Africa on exile. And then you preach hatred. Again, remember the biblical principle. You kill by the sword, you die by the sword. So there's so much. When God gives us bread, let us live peaceably with each other. Don't punish your opponents. You know, now, there are business people in this country who cannot dare to be identified with the opposition because they know the KRA people will be on their case tomorrow. Yani watu wanaishi kwa woga. So we must say no to fear. In a democracy, you cannot have that principle of fear and call yourself a democratic state. Therefore, the Gen Z said, whether we die, they were almost like Paul, who wrote and said, for me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. They said to die is gain. So we have to redeem this land. So that blood cannot have been shed in vain. In 2023, at these grounds, after the demonstrations, The churches in Nairobi could not even allow us to hold some requiem mass for the almost 70 young people who died. So you had to put a tent here. You may remember media colleagues that we were putting wreaths here. Former President Uhuru was here, Raila was here, I was here, and other leaders. We couldn't even be allowed to bury those young people decently. And we ferried them to Siaya, to Makwiny. We ferried them. And then a repeat of 2024, this time led by the Gen Zs. So there's time now, there's need for us to talk mediation and ability to live together as Kenyans. Though we will disagree, as indeed we ought to in a democracy, but let us remember that what is it that is the nexus holding us together? Our Constitution 2010, bequeathed to us by President Kibaki. At least hold that. Let's hold to that constitutionalism, that sense of constitutionalism and the rule of law. And when we say tumeumizana, people should be say sorry literally and do something about it. We will on Friday here be addressing a very critical issue because our research team is on it. So media, don't be tired. We want to talk about this vaccination of 22 million cows.